studied a lot too, like consistent exercise. So being consistent helps your joints stay lubricated. And so you don't get the wear and tear. It's the occasional runner that goes out, runs every 2 weeks and runs hard. They're the ones that are going to get a lot of damage because they're going to induce a lot of inflammatory cells to migrate to the joints and cause swelling. And then actually it's the inflammation that causes the injuries to joints because of all that pressure being built up in your joints. But if you run every day, your body doesn't get the signal, hey, something's wrong.
This week, I interviewed Dr. Bill Andrews. He holds a Ph.D. in molecular and population genetics, has over 50 patents in anti-aging and genetic innovations, and his leadership led to the discovery of human telomerase, the enzyme connected to cellular aging. We discussed lifestyle factors to help slow down aging, along with his research around telomeres, his favorite nutraceuticals to help lengthen telomeres, exercises to live longer, and his one tip to get your body back to what it once was. Really enjoyed my interview with Dr. Andrew. I know you will too. Thanks so much for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Brian Gryn, and I have Dr. Bill Andrews on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on the show.
No problem. Glad to have you on, leading expert on longevity research. You also have a podcast, scientist, anti-aging researcher. What sort of prompted you to get into this type of research?
Well, I think living is the greatest thing that ever happened to any of us. And I just hate the thought that living can be shortened for any of us just because of this, what I consider dumb thing called aging.
Mm-hmm.
But I've spent my whole life just trying to study what aging is and why we age and how we age and how not to age. And I'm just more and more convinced that it's something we don't need to do. But I can describe more details after I hear what other questions you have for me.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, researching aging, what's like the biggest thing that maybe surprised you or that you've learned through the process of, all the many years that you've been researching?
That aging is completely unnecessary. I guess is the biggest. Actually, that wasn't a surprise. That was a slow buildup. I would say the biggest surprise is that almost everybody in the anti-aging field has it all wrong, and probably intentionally or not intentionally maybe, but it's more because the whole field is filled with people just trying to make a buck, trying to sell a product to make people younger. But I've been just very interested in trying to cure my own aging. I want to make everybody younger, and I'm not in it for the money. I've made, I mean, since I've been 10 years old, I've been interested in this because my father was very interested in it. And he put the seed in my head, and he and I teamed up together on this until he passed away about 10 years ago. But we teamed up on trying to work together on doing whatever we could. But I just surprised that all the theories on aging, I learned them all. None of them made sense to me because all the twos and twos didn't add up. I started my own anti-aging clubs in high school and college and graduate school, and just trying to piece it all together. Some of the people that were in my clubs, especially in college, ended up getting Nobel Prizes later. So I mean, I was with a pretty elite group of people having these discussions, but it's like trying to figure out what really is going on in the background of all this stuff that doesn't make sense, but it sure makes a lot of people a lot of money. And that's been going on since before Cleopatra. Cleopatra had people telling her all the time that here's a cure for aging and drink this and you'll be younger. Of course, she never got old to begin with, but it goes way back to God, I can't remember. There's a 2,000 years ago, somebody wrote about a cure for aging. I'm going blank on his name right now.
When I think about aging, I haven't obviously researched as much as you have, but I think of like you have like anabolism and catabolism. You have growth, and then you have the opposite of growth would just be like sort of cutting back, or I think of like growth would be like eating and protein and like trying to build muscle, and then you have catabolism, which maybe would be like maybe prolonged fasting and things like that. And I always thought like it's important to sort of balance those two. And sometimes you hear, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but like you hear people come into the anti-aging realm, and it's all about just like restriction. But what are your thoughts around aging, and like what are some maybe lifestyle changes that people can do to help age gracefully, I guess?
Well, there's a lot of things that people can do to slow down aging, but it's really not aging that they're slowing down. It's just some of the aspects of aging. Okay, so diet is extremely important, but it's not going to allow anybody to live longer than like 125 years. Uh, that's something that we learned in all of our studies and stuff like that all my life, and even especially in my research here at Sierra Sciences. Our lifespans and health spans are limited by a clock that practically has nothing to do with diet and stuff like that. Diet, poor diets can accelerate that clock. That's why none of us can live to be 125 years. So you can slow down accelerated aging. Okay, so there's things you can do to accelerate your aging, and you can slow down that, but you cannot slow down the basal level rate of aging, which limits our lifespan. And it's a hard, fast clock, limits our lifespan to 125 years. And nobody can live longer than that without figuring out a way to solve that clock. And that's what I've done slightly so far. I'm not complete. The research isn't complete yet, but I've figured out ways to slowing down that clock, which is called the telomere clock. It's the tips of our chromosomes, and they get shorter as we age. The analogy I often use is they're like ride tickets at an amusement park. Every time a cell divides, it loses a ticket. Cell divides again, it loses a ticket, just like you're on rides at an amusement park. And when you run out of tickets, your cells cannot divide any longer, and you die of old age. Now, by poor lifestyle, smoking, obesity, I'm trying to think of like
environmental factors.
Oh, environmental factors too, but trying to think of just diet at the moment.
Sure.
There's so many different things that do accelerate telomere shortening. And then there's things that will actually slow down that thing, like omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D. Those things have been well published to slow down the rate of accelerated telomere shortening. But you still have telomere shortening and lengthening is like a tug of war. You've got shortening and lengthening. So even though you might be doing some things like omega-3 fatty acids and vitamin D to lengthen, antioxidants too, anti-inflammatories also, you're doing things to lengthen your telomeres, but you still have the shortening going on because your lifestyle isn't perfect yet, or you have bad genetics. So it's still like a tug of war. And so trying to get rid of the shorteners on this side and add lengtheners to this side is really what you want to do. And the only way to add lengtheners on this side is produce an enzyme called telomerase inside your cells. And that's an enzyme that I discovered back in the early 1990s, me and my team at Geron Corporation. And we are trying to, it's in our reproductive cells. It keeps our telomeres from shortening during the production of our sperm and our eggs, so that our children are born with long telomeres, as long as we had when we were first born. So it's just shut off in all the other cells of our body for evolutionary reasons, which I can explain. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to turn that gene back on. And so I've been testing for nutraceuticals and other things that can actually get inside of our cells and turn the gene back on by binding to a repressor protein that shuts it off. It turns the gene back on to start lengthening telomeres. Now, we have found things that do turn that gene on now, but not enough to win the tug of war or tie the tug of war as occurs in our reproductive cells.
Interesting. Yeah. And I was just, God, I had a train of thought, just lost it. But, you've heard things like resveratrol. That was sort of in the news for a while. They're sort of because of the red wine from the French. But is that something that sort of had some steam and maybe lost it, or is there some efficacy behind that?
I take resveratrol every day. Okay, I believe it's one of the things that can slow down the rate of accelerated telomere shortening. But I also take like NAD, nicotinamide riboside mostly, and urolithin A to help my mitochondria. So I'm doing everything and I can. And I think a lot of these things are under the control of telomere length. And when we figure out a way to lengthen our telomeres to win that tug of war, I think those things will be unnecessary because we have studies showing now that they are all under control of the length of your telomeres. So it's whatever.
And I was just going to ask, like, we talk about lifestyle changes as well. Like, obviously, supplementation could be one aspect to help lengthen the telomeres. What about like things like quality sleep and reducing stress and things like that?
All of them have been shown to be connected to accelerated telomere shortening. Sleep is a big one. Yeah, it's important to get a good night's sleep. Stress, both oxidative stress and psychological stress have been shown to be connected to the length of your telomeres. I've been the keynote speaker at yoga and meditation conferences,
Mm.
and I've shown data that people that practice yoga or meditation regularly actually have longer telomeres than their friends that don't practice yoga and meditation. So almost everything your mother ever told you when you were growing up about being healthy turns out to be true because it's all been connected to affecting the length of your telomeres.
And what's the genetic component? Because you'll see people who have like horrible lifestyles and they'll live to like, 98, 100 years old. And uh, what percentage of genetics plays a role in it?
In the case of telomerase, very little, okay? There are people that are born with accelerated aging diseases like Hutchinson-Gilford disease, also called progeria. But it's not because of their genetics. It was because of their parents' genetics. So one of their parents had a defect or had dysfunctional telomerase in their reproductive cells. And so when the child was born, the child was born with shorter telomeres. And so the person will actually have accelerated aging and die of aging and every other aging related disease by the time they're 20. There's other similar diseases that allow people to live longer, but the most notable one is the Hutchinson-Gilford's disease. If there are other diseases, people really haven't studied to find out what those are yet, but in all cases, they would be related to the parents having the defective gene, not the child.
Got it. Okay. And then, yeah, I've heard you talk about keeping exercise fun. Uh, I totally agree. I think that if you're doing something you enjoy, you're going to do it more, right? Not to say that you have to actually exercise every day, but like, there's some people who just hate to go to the gym and they want to, and I always say, well, find something that you really enjoy that, you're going to be consistent over a long period of time. Is that pretty much what you mean by that?
Kind of.
Yeah.
It's more not making it stressful, not making exercise stressful. I've done like blood work before, during, and after ultra marathons from myself and other runners, and it's typical that the runners that are really pushing hard to finish and having a PR and place in their age group are generating a lot more inflammation and a lot more oxidative stress, both
Hmm.
of which accelerate aging, than runners that just go out and keep it fun. And so it's not, so running 100 miles does not accelerate your aging, okay? But pushing it, making it hard does. I mean, I always say, even like I used to hold the world record for the most 100-mile races run in a year,
Oh,
okay?
wow.
But I didn't finish every race I started, okay? Because if the race quit being fun, I quit.
Hmm.
Because not only at the time was I trying to think, and I don't accelerate my aging, which really wasn't weighing heavily at at the time. I was thinking, I want to still be good for the next race. I want to save it for the next race. And so it was like, so I would quit if I thought, you know, it's too much of a struggle. There's too much of a chance that I'm not going to make it anyway. Why destroy the next race? So I would slow down. And then I would find out that I would never have like so much inflammation that I was stiff as a board the next day. I would, you know, my inflammation markers like CRP and things like that would not be high, as long as I took that attitude. So I always say, if it quits being fun, quit, save it for another day. But yeah, what you were saying is true too. If it's fun, you do it more often. I would say, it's not just running. You can kayak, you can bicycle, you can do a whole bunch of different endurance exercise. Running is just the easiest one to study, in my opinion. But it's like you can actually, it's surprising how your endurance can improve if you just never actually push it hard. Just make it easy, make it fun.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think that if you're living on the extremes when it comes to working out, that's when maybe it can do more harm than good. You know, it's like, you know, you do a really hard workout and you're cashed for like 2 days. You probably set yourself back a little bit more than he actually helped your body, right? Like, especially as you get older. I mean, maybe when you're 25, you can probably push, you know, push those extremes more as opposed to if you're 45. Because recovery, for what I think is, you know, a big key to just making sure that you know, prevent injury and also, you know, just help build muscle or endurance or whatever you're looking to do.
I run every single day. My 2000th consecutive day is coming up in 13 days.
Wow.
And
No days off.
no days off, all outside, rain or snow or whatever, and 2 miles minimum. And I always wear two GPSs on my wrist to get it all documented, because there is a website where people keep track of all this kind of stuff. But I never ever feel like I just ran, even 10 minutes after I finish running, 5 minutes after I finish running. I just feel like sometimes I wonder, hey, did I run today? You know, because I don't want to actually miss a day after doing so many consecutive days. That's 2000 is over. It's almost 5.5 years of not missing a single day. And it would be longer if I didn't accidentally miss April 9th, 2020. Just all of a sudden woke up after midnight realizing, oh, I forgot to run.
Hey everyone, quick interruption here. If you are looking to gain energy, lose inches around your waist, and build strength, well, look no further than my book, The Step Ladder System, 6 Steps to Lifelong Health and Vitality. What you get with the book is my full step-by-step plan and blueprint that I've worked with all my clients with, packed into one book. With part 1, you're going to lay the foundation, tackle any common challenges that might come in your way. Part 2 is my 6-pillar blueprint, how to set yourself up with a solid plan and know exactly what to do when life throws any curveballs. And lastly, step 3 are learning to implementation, a plan for getting results over the next weeks and beyond. So there you have it. I'll leave a link in the show notes for my Step Ladder System book. Now back to the podcast. Well, that's impressive. Do your joints, have your joints held up fine? Knees?
Yeah, I don't have any problems with joints at all. And that's something I've studied a lot too. Like consistent exercise. So being consistent helps your joints stay lubricated. And so you don't get the wear and tear. It's the occasional runner that goes out, runs every 2 weeks and runs hard. They're the ones that are going to get a lot of damage, because they're going to induce a lot of inflammatory cells to migrate to the joints and cause swelling. And then actually it's the inflammation that causes the injuries to joints because of all that pressure being built up in your joints. But if you run every day, your body doesn't get the signal, hey, something's wrong. Okay, no,
Sure.
just ignore it. Yeah, I've been, and some people say, well, that's because you started running when you were old. Okay, well, that's a lot of older runners. And I don't like the word old. I prefer longer lived. So a lot of the longer lived runners, actually didn't start running until they were longer lived. I've been running, competing since before I was 10 years old. In fact, my father entered me into my very first 1 mile race when I was 10 years old.
Mm.
And I lapped second place twice.
Mhm.
So it was like, I was just good at running. And I didn't have the kind of parents that told me to quit running around the pool. My parents just encouraged me to run everywhere. So I've been running my entire life, competing in high school track and cross country, college, high school track and cross country. And I don't have any joint pain, joint injuries whatsoever, or pain.
Mm. What about, like, what's one thing maybe you've changed your mind on? I mean, you've been researching this for, over 20 years. What's one thing that you've changed your mind on, maybe longevity wise or health wise?
What I wouldn't do again. Well, I wouldn't drink again. I quit drinking over 25 years ago, not because I was an alcoholic, but just because I just realized it was like interfering with life, just life's enjoyable. Why drink? Um, and so I never smoked, never did drugs. So I never actually had that to regret. But all those kind of things
Sure.
tolerate
Yeah.
aging. I'm trying to think of anything that I've changed because I've been so obsessed with trying to stay healthy and not age my whole life. So it's not, I can't think of anything.
What biomarkers are you looking for when it comes to aging? You said you do a lot of blood work on yourself.
There is no really good biomarker for studying aging.
Yeah.
It's just an accumulation of all of them. I think the best way to measure aging is to go to an anti-aging doctor, especially somebody that's got a anti-aging, or A4M is the organization that teaches doctors how to test for that. There's a battery of different blood markers and things like that, but they all have to be reversed. Just having one or two of them reversed doesn't mean you reversed aging or affected aging. But when I speak at medical conferences, there's like 3 or 4 big biomarkers of aging right now that everybody measures. And one of them is telomere length, which is what I'm into. But even there, I don't consider seeing telomeres longer means that you've affected your aging. Telomeres are very difficult to measure. Plus, there's other ways to make them long in your blood without them actually getting lengthened. And actually, any toxin or immunogen, anything that causes an immune reaction, will actually cause the cells in your blood to have longer telomeres, not because they got lengthened, but because it caused a redistribution of cells in your body to put more cells into your blood that had long telomeres that, for instance, came from your bone marrow. So I don't consider that a good marker. There's also DNA methylation, which is a common thing that correlates with aging. Nobody understands anything about its mechanism of action, how that works, but it does correlate. But I think that reversing or showing a slowing of that kind of marker doesn't mean anything. And same with IgG glycosylation, which is also one of the best markers that correlates with aging. I don't think that showing a change in that says anything about your aging. What I always say is that when you go into your doctor's office and you say, I wish somebody would make something that would make me younger, they're not asking their doctor to make my telomeres longer or make my DNA methylation patterns younger or my IgG glycosylation patterns. They want to look, feel, and behave like they're 25 again. And so what I do is I will show pictures of Betty White at 25 and 85. And I will say, is there anybody here who doesn't understand or who doesn't know which photo of Betty White was taken first? And it will get a laugh, but the point was that it's like we can remove the wrinkles, we can remove the colored hair, we can remove the fat in her face and things like that, and you would still know which one was older. So we don't really know what it is. But I say, the only good biomarker of aging is the Betty White test. That's what I call it. You have to pass the Betty White test. You have to look, feel, and behave younger. If you're doing something that will actually affect aging. Now, of course, there's also the advantage of slowing down the aging, but there is no way to measure the slowing of aging. it's absolutely impossible to measure the slowing of aging, except in animal studies where you've got like 1,000 mice in 2 different groups, and they're all identical mice, and you watch them for like a year or 2. But unfortunately, mice aging is very, very different from human aging. One of the things, okay, so there's a regret. I did study mouse aging years ago, and I concluded that mouse aging has nothing to do with human aging. And that was something I wish I hadn't spent a lot of time on. I've realized that the best animal there is on the planet right now for studying human aging, besides humans, is Pygmy marmosets. Pygmy marmosets are closely related to humans, and they're small like mice, and their lifespans are longer than mice, but short enough to be able to study. And that would be the best animal to actually study. And you don't have to harm the animals to study aging. You just have to put them in some, tag them, put them out in some wild area, and then just keep track of their movements. And when they stop moving, you can assume they died. And just let them live natural lives, and just test different treatments on them.
Is that what you're currently working on? Like,
yes, in my clinical studies and in my preclinical studies, I want to use Pygmy marmosets. I haven't started any preclinical studies yet. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing are nutraceuticals, plant extracts that don't require clinical studies. And so it's really hard to get anybody to provide me with the funding to do those preclinical studies. But and actually it's better to be studying humans anyway. Okay, humans will even be a better animal for studying human aging than Pygmy marmosets. So at least with nutraceuticals, that's what we're doing. We're keeping track of people that are taking the nutraceuticals.
And I know you have a partnership with Touchstone. Is there one product that sticks out with them? I know you don't like to sell, and I know supplements are, I think with any supplement you take it with a grain of salt. But is there any one that that you helped develop? Yeah.
I would say that is an exception with Touchstone Essentials. When I first started getting involved with Touchstone, I did a critical meta-analysis of every one of their products, essentially doing due diligence on their products. And I actually put together my reports, and provided them to Touchstone. And I did find that Touchstone Essentials has a very unique set of products that very few companies have. None of them have all of them, that really are good for you, okay? And they really do work. So I'm a big fan of Touchstone. As I said, I'm not a marketer, but the science that I've looked at is really legit. They have like glucose control that converts sugar into fiber. Okay, so you eat a meal full of sugar, just take glucose control, and it converts that sugar into fiber. Sugar is bad for you, but fiber is good for you. Okay, then they have zeolite supplements. I forget the name of the products, but products that contain zeolite, which will take up toxins and get rid of toxins, which are a major cause of accelerated aging. And then what else? They have fulvic acid. A lot of people know that Shilajit has properties that are really, really good. Shilajit also has side effects, but fulvic acid is the active ingredient of Shilajit. And nobody else actually purifies the active ingredient because it makes the product cost more, but fulvic acid does not have the side effects. So fulvic acid does have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties that have been known for thousands of years to be really beneficial to people. But what they did, so Touchstone decided that they wanted to have a product that would lengthen telomeres. And so they approached me and asked me if they could license any of the nutraceuticals that we had discovered, that we had put on the shelf, because my company's goal is to find something to reverse aging. So when we would find things to slow down aging, we didn't want to go and try to market those things, because that would take us away from the research to find something better to reverse aging. But Touchstone licensed our top 5 plant extracts or let's say fractions of plant extracts. They're not whole plant extracts. We would take each plant and then fractionate the chemicals inside of plants or the molecules inside of plants into by size or charge or solubility and things like that. So we'd get fractions of different plant extracts and test those. And we found a few, like we've tested over 20,000 or close to 20,000 different fractions of plant extracts so far. And we have found about 60 different fractions that do induce telomerase expression, but not enough to win the tug of war. So, you know, anybody who's claiming that these products will reverse aging, they're misinformed, but they do slow down aging. And that is really good. This is actually the first product, as far as I'm concerned, that actually will allow somebody to live longer than 125 years, live healthy, and so extend health span and lifespan to greater than 25 years if they do everything else in their life healthy.
Right.
So, like Telovital is the product, and they gave it the name. I pronounce it Telomeres. They pronounce it Telomeres. So it's Telovital. But it's the most potent telomerase inducer on the planet right now, and people can take that to slow down their aging.
Interesting. Yeah. And like you said, I mean, you know, taking something like this and also having the lifestyle changes, you know, just as important. We like to talk about routines. Yeah, there's certain routines that you like to follow, either in the morning or the evening, that, you know, help get your day off on the right foot or help you get quality sleep.
Yeah, I have a fitness room here at my work, and so I don't do any of my exercises until I get to work. So, but the first thing I do is I go into my fitness room. I do a lot of stretches. I do a lot of different weightlifting things. I gotta interject and say that one thing that's really important for people to understand is that anything that you do to your body that induces cell division is going to cause accelerated aging. Okay, it's going to cause accelerated telomere shortening and therefore accelerated aging. And overdoing weightlifting by trying to build muscles, because building muscles, you tear your muscles apart and then you fill in those gaps by cell division, and that causes telomere shortening. So you're actually doing something that accelerates your aging. Same thing for microdermabrasion. When you acid treat or laser treat your skin, that causes accelerated aging. Immune boosters cause accelerated aging, but people should still do it, because what's the point of living a long time if you're not living?
Right.
But I will have a fix for it as soon as I find something potent enough to reverse aging. But my routines, getting back to that, are doing some weightlifting, but light, okay? And then, but stretching, and especially stretching for my running, because I do like to do well, but I won't push it so hard that it causes accelerated aging. But yeah, those are part of my routines. But there's also my supplements. I have a whole room here at CR Sciences where
yeah, I only imagine how many.
I take them every morning as soon as I get to work.
Yeah, and so I mean, I'm sure your supplement stack is quite a bit. It sounds like it is. I'm assuming you take the Telovital, and it sounds like you take resveratrol. Is it you take NAD? Is that right?
I take nicotinamide riboside. In my due diligence, I've decided that is by far the best way to induce your NAD levels. And I take urolithin A, which is one of the best things you can do to help with mitochondria health. There's other things you can do too, but if your telomeres get critically short, none of that stuff's going to work anyway. You have to also keep your telomeres long, because most of the genes that are involved in the biochemical pathways of those products are encoded by your chromosomes, by your nuclear chromosomes, and the telomere controls those things.
If let's say someone said to you tomorrow, you got to take one thing, right? Only one for the rest of your life. What would you do? Which one would you take?
It would be Telovital.
It would be what? I'm sorry.
Telovital.
Okay.
And not because I'm trying to market it, but
Right.
it's the telomere length controls everything, all the genes. So if there's any scientists listening to this thing, they'll know what enhancer sequences are that are found in our chromosomes that regulate the genes from that can be 1,000 bases away on the chromosome. Genes are all controlled by dimmer switches. They're called promoters. Okay. Well, enhancers control these dimmer switches. Well, telomeres are the same as enhancers. They fold over and they turn the dimmer switches on and off. But the difference between telomeres and enhancers is that telomeres get shorter. And so the telomeres can't regulate all the genes appropriately when those telomeres start getting short because they can't reach the genes as easily as they could when you were young. And so keeping your telomeres long is the best way to control more things about aging than anything else can.
Interesting. And have you seen it? Have you felt a difference? Obviously it's going to take more than a few months probably to feel any different, but
Theoretically, you shouldn't feel any difference. Okay.
okay.
It's a product that you have to go on faith on because you're slowing down aging. You're not reversing aging. And slowing down aging isn't going to make something feel better. It's just going to make it feel worse at a slower rate. Okay. Now, that said, I used that analogy of a tug of war before. It turns out several studies have now published showing that when the telomeres get really short, the number of people pulling to shorten decrease. So it turns out when your telomeres get really short, it's easier to lengthen. So Telovital could be inducing enough telomerase in your cells to actually lengthen critically short telomeres. And though I don't really believe in anecdotal data, there is a lot of anecdotal data going along, especially with the really longer lived, like in their 90s, people that are taking Telovital. They're observing some very major changes, which I did not expect. But the only way to explain it is that they are lengthening their critically short telomeres because they have a lot of critically short telomeres. But if you're under 50, you're not going to have a lot of critically short telomeres unless you have some severe genetic issue going on, like progeria or something like that. But you will be slowing down your aging, and that's really important. So just like you're doing everything else to extend your lifespan and health span, like exercise, diet, things like that, also do Telovital. But only expect to see something if you actually have something that needs fixing that was broken because of critically short telomeres. Yeah, it's still taken. I would take it. I'm not trying to look for anything. I'm just taking it because I know more about telomeres than anybody in the world. I take it because I want to maintain my telomere length as best I can.
Got it. Interesting. And okay, so what's next for you? Where's the research going, and what can people look for down the road, maybe?
The research is going in the direction of trying to find more potent nutraceuticals. We have these $1 million high throughput robots here. They don't look like humans. They're robots still, but they can test up to 4,000 different fractions of plant extracts a day. Okay?
Wow.
But the hard part isn't the robots can do a lot faster than the humans can, because I have teams of humans just trying to put together and trying to find sources of fractions of plant extracts to test. And there's at least 3 million out there. And we've only tested just under 20,000 so far. And so I'd like to continue doing that research. And I'm not, when I find something, as I said, I put it on the shelf, because if it doesn't reverse aging, I want to continue doing research. I don't want to be involved in marketing. But I'm glad to be connected with Touchstone Essentials now, because I'm just going to be, anything we find that's more potent than is already found in Telovital is going to be sent to Touchstone so that they can include it in their next generation product.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, this was great. I know we just sort of touched on a bunch of stuff, but I'm sure you could go into tons of detail regarding anti-aging and telomeres. And I know you have a podcast as well. Where can people find that?
Well, they can go to Touchstone, but the podcast is called Up One, UP space ONE. It's, see, I have, one of the things I learned all through my education was what I call critical meta-analysis of peer-reviewed studies. Okay, so I know all the secrets to reading studies to find out which ones are flawed, which ones are real, and things like that. And so the purpose of the podcast is to really educate people on what's real and what's not real. And I don't really point fingers at bad products or anything. I tell people how to figure it out for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, if somebody, let's go back to Telovital for a second. If somebody says that they have a product that lengthens your telomeres and reverse aging, ask them, does your product induce telomerase expression? Do they have any data saying it induces telomerase expression? If they don't, their product doesn't really work. Okay. And because the only way to lengthen telomeres is with telomerase. Even in the tug of war, even with the shortening, they're still lengthening. The lengthening is just not winning. But even that can only be done by the expression of telomerase. And Telovital is the only product right now on the planet that actually, the nutraceutical product that can actually demonstrate expression of telomerase. And I think I mentioned earlier that there's other ways of making it appear that your telomeres got longer, but they didn't. They were just like in your blood, just the population of cells was changed. And any toxin or immunogen can do that. And so the company says they have a product that can lengthen telomeres, and they show data showing telomeres are longer after you take the product than before. Run away, because if they don't also have something showing that they produce telomerase to lengthen the telomeres, that product is almost certainly a toxin or an immunogen that is actually causing accelerated aging.
And when you say it increases telomeres, telomerase, I should say, induction, is that on humans or is that on animals?
Well, it's in humans. Okay, so mice actually have telomerase produced in all their cells of their body. There's a common thing going around. People are saying that they've extended telomere lengths in mice and made the mice live longer, but nobody ever measures the telomeres. Nobody ever looks at telomerase activity, and we don't really understand the data. There's a chance that mice telomeres suddenly have a drastic drop at end of life, and that's why maybe some people see extension of lifespan in mice by doing a telomerase inducer. But yeah, the only animals on the planet that have been shown to age by telomere shortening are humans, some non-human primates, including Pygmy marmosets, and then dogs, cats, horses, sheep, pig, and deer. Every other animal has either been shown to age by different other mechanisms, like mice age by mitochondrial dysfunction and oxidative stress. And then there's some animals that have no detectable aging, like lobsters, humpback whales, some fish, some birds, tortoises, clams. Clams are the only one animal that actually has something equivalent to rings on a tree, so you can actually tell how old these animals are.
Mm-hmm.
There's clams now that have been discovered over 500 years old. All these animals I just mentioned that don't have any detectable aging, lobsters, humpback whales, stuff like that, tortoises, they all have telomerase already produced in all the cells of their body. They have no telomere shortening. They rarely get diseases, and they have no detectable aging. So it's a really good thing. And I'm just trying to make humans more like the lobsters.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, lots of good information here, Dr. Bill. Where's the best place for people to find you, your research?
I do have a website. It's www.sierrasci, SIERRASCI, short for Sierra Sciences.
sierrasci.com. Okay.
I will confess, I'm just a medical research company. I don't spend a lot of time keeping my website up to date. But I would also go to the Touchstone Essentials website, because they have a lot there on my research. And that's www.thegoodinside.com. And
yeah, I'll leave links in the show notes, and maybe we can maybe we'll do a little bit of a discount if people want to go on there and try out that Telovital.
I'm sure Touchstone would be happy to do that.
Yeah.
I don't mind giving out my email address if anybody really wants to talk to me about things. I find it a great way to just take a break. Okay, so I enjoy it immensely. My email address is B as in boy, Andrews at sierrasci.com. And people are welcome to email me and ask questions. And I'm really good at responding to these emails that I get.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes as well. Your address, if you so people want to reach out. That's very nice. So, well, thanks for coming on. And it was great meeting you. Look forward to all the research that you're going to be doing in the future. And yeah, thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the show. I know there's thousands of podcasts out there, and you chose to listen to mine. I will put a link in the show notes if you want to connect with my guest. And if you are looking for one-on-one consulting with me, I will put a free 15-minute link so you can set up a call to see if you're fit for my 6-month health breakthrough program. So thanks again. Feel free to rate and subscribe. I would love that to help support the podcast. And till next time, have a great rest of the day. And I will see you on my next podcast. Thanks so much.